Hello everyone and welcome to Beyond the Box Score. I'm Nathan Stacken along with a cavalcade of stars here. You may know me and my partner Travis from our radio show, The Sports Block with Nathan and Travis on 90.7 KSTJ. Dan Beck, who also fills in alongside from time to time, and Charlie Hildebrand, our resident college football expert. We begin with the oddest story by far of the weekend, and that happened in the NFL with the Giants getting stranded in Kansas City due to a snowstorm in Minneapolis. The game was then going to be postponed, but it ended up getting moved from Monday night in the Metrodome to Detroit on Monday night due to the Metrodome roof collapsing. We have video up here now of it, and as you can see, it looks as if it was computer generated. Obviously, now the long-term future of the Vikings playing at home, at least this year, they have one more home game against the Bears, is up in the air. So as I turn to you guys, just your thoughts from the entire situation regarding the Vikings and the Giants and the game itself and how it all played out.
I thought it was tremendous video, as we saw. It was, I learned about it first Sunday morning. I saw the video on the Fox pregame show, and I thought it was, outstanding, as you said. And I found out about the Giants being stuck in Kansas City the night before, and it sounded like they were going to be able to make it to Minneapolis about 10 a.m. that Sunday before the game. But obviously with the way the roof was, I don't know how that could have been possible. And then the thing happens with the roof, and they cancel the game until Monday, and a terrible game it was. And we'll get into that.
Both sides of it, too. They both looked very bad from the start. The Giants ended up rushing for over 200 yards against the Vikings, the first time that has happened to the Vikings since 2005. So obviously that was bad for the Vikings. But as I turn to you, Dan, what were your reactions, and now what are your thoughts about the Vikings and their long-term perhaps situation with the Metrodome and their stay in Minnesota?
Well, I would hope that they'd be able to finish their last regular season home game in the Gopher Stadium. I knew for the Giants it was good that they found an indoor stadium for them being stranded in Kansas City, and they prepared to play indoors that week, so I was glad to see that they got themselves indoors for their game. They didn't bring any outside clothes at all.
No,
or
no
any
extra underwear either,
either. But long term, I would hope this would help Minnesota get a new stadium. I think this will push the market now for it and let the fans and citizens of the Twin Cities and let them know that they need to get something done here with the new stadium.
What about you, Charlie? What are your thoughts?
Well, I thought it was kind of weird. It definitely looked like a bag of flour being dropped in through the stadium, and it obviously shows that they've got problems with the Metrodome and need to get it fixed, or I don't know, maybe move the team to a different city or something. But in terms of the Vikings, I think they're definitely going to need to pick up a quarterback in the draft or do something. They've got a lot of problems right now. Obviously, Brett Favre's not the answer. I don't think T-Jack's the answer, so they're going to have to switch some stuff up around front office-wise.
This has been the worst season. I've been a fan for 15 years. This has been the worst season I can remember. And I think it's fitting that the dome collapses the way it did at the end of the season. Just
metaphor. It's just
it's
kind of encapsulated their whole entire season. I mean, did anyone really think that the Vikings were going to win tomorrow? I mean, you had to think they were just going to give a lackluster effort. I didn't think it was going to be quite as bad as losing 21-3, but they looked uninspired. I think Brett Favre not playing, and we'll get to him more later in the show, him not starting and ending that consecutive game losing streak hurt them too. But, I mean, obviously a huge edge for the Giants from the game being moved from the Metrodome to Detroit, where no Vikings fans can go.
Yeah, you take away that home crowd, and in the Metrodome, I really didn't know what to expect from this game. The Vikings, they played the Giants pretty well the last few years, and Eli Manning's terrible against Minnesota. Has, I think 11 interceptions in the last about 3-4 games against Minnesota, and he didn't play all that well last night either, despite the win. But I really didn't know what to expect from the game, and it had a feel like it was a preseason game because the crowd wasn't really into it. You didn't have fans for either side, so I thought it was a very, very dull game.
Let's continue with Brett Favre's streak here now. It ended at 297 consecutive games during the regular season. now 321, I believe, counting playoffs. Do you see him playing again this year, or is he done?
I'll take that one then, I guess. I see Brett Favre, he'll probably come back the last game of the year. He's still banged up now. I was really shocked, I guess. I thought he would have started. I did not expect him to not sit out. When the roof collapsed, I thought, well, this is perfect for him. He's got an extra day now to get prepared and be able to start. So when the texting was happening with Ed Warder and ESPN and all that, I was like, yeah, I think it's Brett Favre just kind of making propaganda and getting people to pay attention to the Minnesota Vikings again. So I was expecting him to start and not finish the game, though. I knew his injury was pretty bad. We all saw that hit. It was brutal that he took against Buffalo. But I expected him to start to keep the streak alive. I thought he would have made it to 300. I thought that would have been a goal of his now, since the season for the Vikings is pretty much over. But I was surprised that he was inactive for the game.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty surprising to see, too. I mean, I think realistically, Favre probably should have retired 4 or 5 years ago. I think other than last year.
He had such a good season though last
Other
year.
than last year with the Vikings and his last year with the Packers, over the past 5 or 6 years, he's been more of a hindrance than a help.
He did start well with the Jets. They were 8-3, and then he had the biceps
And then he got
tear.
hurt and struggled his last 5 or 6 games. But, I think the Vikings are probably better with Tavares Jackson starting right now. Probably didn't look that way yesterday, but I think long-term they'll be better with him or somebody else. And I think, it's kind of weird to see the streak end, but, it's got to end at some time or another.
And I'm probably a bigger fan of Jackson than most Viking fans.
He was terrible
but
yesterday.
But given that, last night he did not play well. It was the least number of yards they've had in a game since his first start in 2006 at Green Bay. So, I don't know. I don't think he's the answer next year. So, I think Jackson proved to me these last couple games that you deserve a chance to come back next year.
Very quickly, Favre's streak. Is it the best accomplishment, best streak in sports?
I'll say it's up there. I don't know if it's the best, but I think to put it into perspective, all you have to do is look at Tavares Jackson. He came out of that game 3 times last night. And so it's very easy to get knocked out of an NFL game. And he's done it for, nearly 15, 20 years.
In terms of longevity, I think it's most definitely far more impressive than in any other sport, unless they would start boxing or mixed martial arts once a week or something like that. Of the 4 professional sports, it's by far the most impressive, in my opinion.
Yeah, for a quarterback to do that in today's NFL league, that's how brutal it's become, it is very impressive. I want to talk about one other streak of Brett Favre's, though. Travis and I talked about this last night. He is now 4 years in a row with his last pass being an interception. So I'm curious to see. I think he'll come back and play the last game, but will we see a finale interception pass from Brett Favre? That'll be something interesting, I guess.
I don't know. Once again, we're going to show that video of the Metrodome collapsing, because I think last night with Favre's streak ending and the Vikings putting up that lackluster effort, it totally, quite fittingly, is the end of the Viking season as we know it, though they have 3 more to play. All right, we're going to switch now from the pros to college football, and we go back to Saturday when Cam Newton won the Heisman Trophy by one of the largest margins ever recorded. It was Andrew Luck finishing second, the quarterback from Stanford. LaMichael James, the running back from Oregon, finished third, and Kellen Moore, quarterback from Boise State, finished fourth. So as I turn to the panel now, did Cam Newton deserve to win the Heisman?
Oh, yeah, he was the best player all season. There were about 100 or so voters that left him off the ballot, and that's their own reasoning. The NCAA hasn't hasn't convicted him of anything. Possibly something could come out once he left Auburn, but as of right now, I think, he definitely deserved, and by the margin of victory, one of the largest ever, I think definitely he should have won. Yes, Cam Newton was the best college performer this year on the field, regardless of what may or may not have happened off the field. I was a little disappointed to see Kellen Moore so low. I thought Boise State had a really good year, but it might be the voters trying to say they're not going to give it to the non-BCS qualifying schools if they're not in the title game. So I was disappointed in that, but
Cam Newton by far was the overall best player this year.
Oh, yeah, I thought he was definitely the best player. You know, quarterbacking Auburn to a BCS title game against just a brutal schedule. Passing and rushing for over 20 touchdowns has kind of been the signature player this entire year, both in terms of on and off the field things. And so I think he definitely deserved it. I agree.
And, you know, they consider the SEC to be the best football conference in the country. And he scored more touchdowns than many, many teams. He's, at 48, 49 touchdowns combined. And if he did that in the best football conference in America, what did he do last year when he was at a junior college? Just think about that. And the level of competition, you know, difference there, and how he dominated the SEC.
I think Florida let him get away to Auburn. That is crazy. With some of the media leaving him off, Cam Newton off the ballot, yes or no, do you have a problem with that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes.
No, not really.
All right, agree to disagree then, as the panel does. We are going to take a short break, but coming up, we're going to talk SDSU basketball with the men losing over the weekend and the women struggling so far this year. We'll diagnose their problems and look ahead to the games coming up this week and over the semester break. You're watching Beyond the Box Score here on SDSU Channel 2. All right, welcome back to the Beyond the Box Score here on SDSU Channel 2. Dan Beck is taking a short break, so we brought in Drue, sports editor at the Collegian here, the campus newspaper. So we welcome you aboard.
It's great to be here.
Part-time Argus leader fill-in last couple weeks.
Yeah, I've seen a few articles in that.
Yes, it's great to be here, guys.
All right, well, good. Well, we are bringing you in here more for the talk of the SDSU basketball. We'll talk the men first. They lost over the weekend on Saturday to University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. It was 82-70. Not the best performance by SDSU. Milwaukee was 14 of 23 from beyond the three-point line, so that really played a factor in it. So your reaction to the game, and where is SDSU head? Are they in a little trouble here now? Are teams starting to figure them out?
It's a period where I think they got to do a bunch of adjusting. I think teams have really sort of figured out kind of how they attack on offense. A lot of times on Saturday against Milwaukee in particular, a lot of times in the motion offense, a lot of times just spreading the ball around on the top and then trying to get it inside. Well, that hasn't really been working so far this season, and now teams are starting to sort of not sag so deep on the inside. Now they're up on shooters like Sargent and shooters like Walters, and so their offense is kind of in flux a little bit. And then defensively, as far as that is concerned, again, they just need more pressure. A lot of on Saturday with Milwaukee, a lot of their threes were. Now, granted, they made some threes. Well, they made all sorts of threes, really. I mean, they were just hot from the get-go.
14 of 23 does not lie.
A lot of times, there were really just open looks, basically, and they just happened to capitalize on that. So I think it's kind of a period where they need to adjust sort of their game plan offensively, because there's been a lot of times where their offense has just been kind of stagnant, standing around until about 5 seconds left, and then Nate Walters basically just crashes, drives the lane and tries to draw a foul.
Best player on the team, I'll
Yeah,
just say that.
they've had this stretch here of 7 home games in a row over the last three or so weeks, and now they go on the road for 5 games. You got a couple Michigan schools, you got at Minnesota, you got your first 2 conference games on the road, and they're at 7-2 right now. And I thought heading into this homestand, going 2-0 as they did to open the season, 7-2 would be the minimum requirement, because they played a couple of tough teams, North Dakota State, Milwaukee, and they ended up losing those games. But now that they go on the road to Minnesota, that's likely a loss. See how they do in conference to a couple of teams that they should beat, and you see how they do against these Michigan.
UMKC and